If you're struggling with depersonalization or derealization, probably one of the most burning questions you have is, can you ever go back to normal after this? Let's say you even do get better, but do you actually go back to normal? Like 100% normal? Not just like a little bit, but like, can you actually go back? And you may even feel like the person you used to be before all this happened is so distant from who you are right now that it may feel like recovery is not even possible. Well, this is exactly what I struggled with, and what I want to talk about in this video is genuinely what happens. Do you actually go back to living, or is this something you kind of always manage or cope with forever? So let's get started. So my struggling days all started with a panic attack. I didn't know what a panic attack was. After that, I started getting physical symptoms. I actually thought there was something physically wrong with me at first. I even started getting these what if thoughts, I started overthinking, I started getting these intrusive thoughts, and everyone told me it was fine. I even went to doctors, and even doctors were saying, hey, there's nothing wrong, everything's fine, this is just anxiety. And deep down, I always felt like, nope, this is not. This is something that's really intense. There's something seriously wrong. I've never felt like this before. This isn't normal. What I'm experiencing isn't normal, and it's not just something that I feel like is gonna go away by itself. Then what happened? What happened was that I started dissociating. I started feeling like the world wasn't real. I struggled with a little bit with depersonalization, which was this out-of-body experience, and both things confirmed to me that something was seriously wrong. That's when I genuinely thought my biggest fear would actually come true, which was I'm going crazy. This was validation for me that I was genuinely going crazy because, okay, fine, if there was something physically wrong, that's one thing. If I was getting these intrusive thoughts, that's another thing. But look, reality doesn't seem the same anymore. Something seems wrong. The colors don't seem as bright. Like all these things were happening. I was starting to feel like I was like in this alternate universe, and I genuinely thought I was going crazy and I was gonna die. And because of that, I started getting these existential thoughts. What's the meaning of life? What's this? What's that? I was only 22 years old. And I never really thought about those kinds of things. I thought I had my whole life ahead of me, and now I'm starting to think, what is reality? And what happens after death? What happens after all these things? And it was really scary at the time. It really was. And again, it was one of those things that really validated to me that, okay, I am going crazy. Look, everyone else said it wasn't anything, but look, something's actually wrong. And so you may be going through a very, very similar experience. And so after, it's been a long time for me since I've gone through that. And so the honest answer is, does this actually go away? Do you go back to 100% living the same? And the answer is yes, you actually do. You actually go back living 100% fine, just like your old self. I like to think of it as that you're not just your old self, but you're a better version too, because you kind of went through something that was difficult, that was challenging, that, you kind of had to work through. So I actually think you're a better person because of it. But if you're just interested in going back, yeah, you honestly do. But here's the thing, you kind of have to understand a few things of how depersonalization works, really how it falls into the arc of anxiety. And so if you're really trying to know more, trying to understand how to get out of this, I'll put a link down below. The link is to a free book. It's a free book, it's kind of like a report. I break down step by step how to overcome this, how to get out of this once and for all. Not just to manage or cope, not just to feel a little bit better. This isn't an overnight thing, but this actually brings you back to that 100%, the place you want to be. The place you want to go back living freely without this ever being an issue. So I'll put the link down below, check it out. So like I said, it was really the depersonalization, derealization that convinced me that there was something seriously wrong. And the second I was validated that, look, I am going crazy, I went 100%. I went 0 to 100. I stopped listening to everybody. And I did whatever I wanted, and I was gonna make sure I get this fixed. And I spent so much money, and I spent so much time on the internet trying to Google search, trying to go on forums, trying to figure out what's happening to me, why is this happening? And I even had, for me personally, I had this weird theory. I had this theory because my biggest fear actually wasn't the derealization. My biggest fear was the digestive issues. So I came up with this weird narrative that it all started from my gut for some reason. It seemed more likely. That's at the time, at least it did. And because I was having gut issues, well, that's what was causing the brain fog. That's what was causing the derealization, depersonalization. So I was trying to figure out all these things. And I went into this giant rabbit hole because over time it had became such a long time. I'd struggled for so long that I'd actually forgotten what normal was like. And I was even concerned of, will I ever even know what normal is like? Or is it always gonna be like this? Or how do I not know this is normal at all? And so what was happening was that besides the fact that I was experiencing derealization, depersonalization, well, I was also getting a lot of intrusive thoughts. And I was catastrophizing a lot. You may be experiencing existential anxiety too. What's the meaning of this? What's the purpose of all this? I totally understand. It's actually one of the most common questions people ask when they're struggling. The truth is everybody struggles. They don't struggle, but everybody has these questions. But when you're in this state, you're kind of overthinking. You're thinking a lot. And so it's very easy to go to dark conclusions. So what I'll do is I'll put a link down below to another video I made separately about existential thoughts, about existential anxiety. It fits into this exact same thing. But here's the thing. When I was struggling, I honestly felt like I didn't think my old personality would come back. I felt like a lot of my memories were lost. I didn't even remember what recovery looked like. I didn't remember what being normal felt like. And then there was something that I learned later called state-dependent memory. Now, what is state-dependent memory? State-dependent memory is this idea that depending on your state, certain memories are more accessible to you than not. And it's actually true. In fact, when I'm helping people overcome their anxiety and go back to living without any of these residual symptoms being there, one of the things I can ask them right away is, how do you feel right now? And if they don't feel good right now, let's say their anxiety is high, and it's been a hard time, they're having a hard time allowing it to be there, well then what happens at that moment is that they start thinking about all the negative things in the past. And so I know that. So even when I ask them if they're not doing good, I know they're only gonna bring up bad things or things back in the day when they used to struggle, or they'll bring up past memories of certain things that are kind of irrelevant, to be honest with you. But they bring it up because it's more accessible to them. And so if somebody's doing really well, when people start doing well, they're like, oh, okay, well, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can feel good. Okay, maybe I can get out of this. Now, what's the honest truth here? Well, the honest truth is that it's not really the memory. It's the state that you're in. State determines what memory you're in. So that was very critical for my recovery journey because I understood finally, well, I'm struggling with this. The reason why I can't really remember the good days is because I was in a bad state right now. So I only remember the bad stuff. But ironically, as I got better, I started remembering my old self, and what happened was my personality would start coming back on its own. So it's actually quite ironic. It's been a few years, it's been a long time since I struggled with this. And even though I help people around the world, I sometimes now find it hard to relate to them now because there's been so much time that, I haven't struggled with this for so long that I don't really remember what it's like anymore as much, having morning anxiety and these things, because there's been so much time. I've had so many good days that, and I'm at a certain state now where I'm not in this fight or flight response. I'm not in this trauma response, that it's hard for me to actually remember those times. And so it's kind of the same with you right now, which is you're in this state, so it's hard to remember the good days. But the truth is that you're exactly the same person. You are genuinely the same person. You're just in a different state. Put anybody in your situation, they would experience the exact same thing. So it's really about understanding what's happening and recognizing that these thoughts of, will I ever go back to normal? Will it be 100%? Well, how do I know? You're projecting too much in the future, and really, it's not about you overcoming anxiety, but that is the anxiety. You asking questions, am I ever gonna come out of this? Am I ever gonna be 100%? How do I know if? That is the anxiety. That is the derealization. That is that response that you're experiencing. And so if you're really trying to overcome this, you really need to focus on a long-term game plan and not kind of going into these pitfalls that people that are struggling typically fall into. Recovery is oftentimes doing the opposite of what you're doing intuitively because recovery in itself is more counterintuitive. So I hope this video helps if you're really trying to know more, if you're really trying to get out of this and you're like, look, I just want to overcome this. I want to get rid of this. I want to go back to living. I have more important things in my life than this stuff. And I've struggled with this long enough. And, you know, I'm just serious about overcoming it. Well, if that's you, I would highly recommend think who, not how. Here's what I mean. Rather than trying to figure out how, find people that have actually genuinely gone through this. Now that's kind of hard. That's actually probably the hardest part, in fact. Finding somebody who you feel like really understands what's happening, who has gone through it themselves, who can guide other people through it. Most people don't really know how this stuff works, and most people haven't really experienced it. People experience derealization, depersonalization, but not to the intensity that you may be struggling with, where it's more long lasting. So if you really want to know how to come out of this, I would highly recommend find somebody who's gone through this and have them guide you through it themselves. If you really want to work with me and my team, all we do is help people fully come out of this and go back to living without relying on anything, not even us. And we've helped people around the world overcome this. There's nothing we haven't seen at this point because honestly, we had to do it for ourselves first. Our own lifeline depended on it. And then we've helped so many other people go through it that at this point, it's very hard to surprise us. There's nothing that really surprises us. And we know what steps to take. This is replicable. How to overcome this is 100% replicable. It's the same thing. If you just focus on a few principles, have a little bit of patience, have a little bit of consistency, you can come out of this. So the link is down below. You can apply for mentorship. We are kind of choosy who we work with. And so what you'll do is that you'll click on the link. When you hit the link, it will show you a 25-minute video that really breaks down how the mentorship looks like. What are some of the results that we get? Who are some of these people that are recovering? And also giving you even a deeper dive into how to overcome this and giving you some principles. Even if you're not serious about the mentorship, it's good to really watch this video because we really kind of go deep into it. And worst cases, you get some extra knowledge and you get some extra guidance and you get some extra value. So the link is down below. Check it out. I'll see you inside.